person is lying to Congress. And this is really pretty shocking how, I mean, we have a couple of clips. It's ongoing. But one of the things that she's complaining about is that and I don't know exactly how this is, but one of the problems, apparently, according to her, is that there's so many migrants coming that it's unfair to them to be able to look at their asylum claims. As opposed to we just have specifically degraded the apparatus to A, look at their asylum claims, B, we have narrowed the ability for them to claim asylum in a myriad of ways. That's not the problem. The problem is there's just too much demanded. It's unfair to the demanders. Here she is. I don't know what you would call this. Just a performance.
To your knowledge, are you aware of family members who've been separated from their children and deported back to a country without their children?
Yes, sir.
Can you provide this committee with a list of those individuals?
I'm happy to do that with the one caveat that, as you know, that's part of ongoing litigation in Miss L, and as long as there's no privacy concerns from the court, of course, we're happy to provide that. A lot of the information is in the Miss L court with respect to each migrant. I would also just note that, consistent with longstanding practice in the law, before we deport any alien after they have gone through the process and receive a final order of removal, we do ask them if they would like to take their children with them. At that same time, their consulate or embassy, for purposes of issuing them travel papers, also asks them, would you like to be removed with your children as you're removed? As part of Miss L, the judge also asked us to go back and ask the parents again in conjunction with the ACLU, which we did. So there was no parent who has been deported, to my knowledge, without multiple opportunities to take their children with them.
I don't think so. There you go. Yeah, to her knowledge, all those stories you're hearing about that are all fraudulent, to her knowledge. They've all been asked. Really disgusting. The only thing that is in any way, the only thing that gives me any solace is the dry mouth that she has. Makes me indicate at least that she knows deep inside her that she is full of it. Let's just look at the first of the protests. There were young people who were there in a silent protest who ended up getting led out.
Including very small children.
Here it is. Here, there, you can see. And then there's a couple of, and there's a small child being held baby. And they are here as part of, while she's testifying, and they're being, I guess, ushered out of the room at this point. So some sense that at least there are people who are protesting this. And this is, of course, the Government Accountability or Government Oversight Committee in the House. And you know what that means. The Republicans have brought out their A-team. Here is what's his name? Cal Higgins? Is that it? Clay Higgins. Let's start with Clay Higgins, and then just sort of like, if you can, just shove him out of the way so that we can So here, put him up there. And this is Clay Higgins. He's from Tennessee. He's the one who couldn't quite follow the idea in the Cohen hearings that Cohen was looking through his boxes of evidence to pull stuff for the committee hearing, but it was boxes of evidence that had been collected by the FBI, had been sorted through by the FBI to determine what they wanted, and what they were going to record and then given back to him. Higgins kept saying over and over again, shouldn't investigators have this material? And Cohen kept trying to explain, no, they've had it and they gave it back because they've already done their investigations. Apparently Higgins himself was in law enforcement and was not aware of this dynamic. But here he is.
I believe that.
Talking, yes, I do too. I believe there's nothing that Higgins says that I find beyond belief. Here is Higgins talking about the desperate migrants coming to the border, families, children. I heard that story the other day of police officers in El Salvador escaping the country because they were afraid. And here's Higgins explaining what this dynamic really is.
Let me just put this in context for the American people. Perhaps the most famous invasion in the history of the world, D-Day. 73,000 American troops
Let's pop this baby up there.
landed in the D-Day invasion. We have 76,103, according to my numbers, apprehensions along our southern border last month. We have D-Day every month on our southern border. Just to put this in context for America, yes, physical barriers work, enhanced technology works. Let me just put this in context for the American people. Perhaps the most famous invasion in the history of the world, D-Day. 73,000 American troops landed in the D-Day invasion.
Okay.
We
That's
have
it. We've seen enough there. All right.
26,103, according.
There it is. Higgins providing us context. What's happening with these families that are walking up to the border hoping to get asylum is just like D-Day. That's the context that he wants there. It's like an invasion of tens of thousands of armed troops. Just sheer insanity that's going on with these Republicans and the border at this point.
Armed with dangerous workaholism, perhaps.
Right, exactly.